What is up, YouTube? This was a game I played with the white pieces against international master Mark Plotkin, who goes by Little Plotkin online. I decided to start with the standard. You guys have never ever seen this before, but I played a London system. And this idea of c6 is it's actually kind of, let's say, a really simple idea, but it can throw people off because the plan is to play what Mark does right now, which is queen to b6, hitting the b2 pawn, and you don't really want to play b3 or anything like that in those situations. So instead I play very quickly queen c1. He indicates he wants to play a stonewall setup, and I'm essentially developing my pieces in a pretty basic way so far. Knight f3, bishop f4, all hitting that tender e5 square. The weird thing about this is that he doesn't need to play this move queen b6 in order to do this setup. And I would argue that the queen is misplaced here. Because he can't play bishop d6, not supported by his queen anymore. There are a few reasons why I believe the queen on b6 is just wrong. This bishop is blocked, can't even play pawn to b6 anymore. So I think everything in the current position feels a little bit strange for black. So I knew I had a good opening to start off the game, which is always a good feeling in blitz. And as you can see, the eval bar tends to agree. Black doesn't really have an option to play bishop d6 in any way, so my bishop on f4 will remain fairly unopposed for the moment. Knight c3 looks like the usual move, but I have to say, most times when I'm playing against the stonewall, I don't like the knight there because knight e4 just challenges it perfectly, and from c3 I don't really have anywhere to go next. But from d2 I can potentially swing to f3 and support the e5 square even further. Both myself and my opponent jump into those juicy squares in the center. The difference being, because black has this structure, he can't attack my knight, but I can. Right? I haven't committed my pawn to f4 or anything like that. So we hit the knight on e4, we get a trade on e5, and my opponent plays a move which is definitely a good one here, knight g5. I liked this one instead of trading because the idea is to bring the knight back and hit my bishop. You can see the time on the clock. I mean, I am the world's slowest blitz player. He's got basically double the time that I have. The knight retreats to f7, and I'm more than happy to allow that bishop to get taken because the position that we have is a very closed one. Might play c5 in the future. It's all locked up here. So knights should be stronger than bishops in a position like this. So I don't mind handing him the bishop pair here. Another think here, which, looking back at it, I can't believe how slow I am. I decide on h3, which I think is a pretty reasonable plan. H3 and king h2, because I recognize that I might need this g4 move to drum up some counterplay. But having just spent time on these two kind of slow moves, I think there was an opportunity here for my opponent to play a move like c5, really challenging, opening the position up. Instead, he plays bishop e8, which I was happy to see. He was taking a slower approach, that's for sure. It's time for me to execute my plan here of rook g1. And after knight d6, I think there's no chance that I want to allow the knight to get in there, so I take this opportunity to play a move that might not be so obvious to those watching, but giving up the bishop pair here I think is absolutely the right call. It frees up the e5 square for my knight, and it does not allow him to sink a knight into a great e4 outpost. Another important move here, c5, closing things up. I do not want to allow him to play c5. I prefer the closed position based on the fact that I have the knight. And finally, all those moves on the king side are actually, there's actually a point playing them, as we get to use this g file. Taking with the rook, I think, is superior here. Rather than taking with the pawn, I'd rather use the g file. Attack g7, down to just, 7 seconds now, so I'm probably going to be under 10 seconds for the rest of the game. In terms of, the engine, I think bishop takes knight here. Opposite bishops is sort of the way to play. But it's tough to give up the bishop pair like that, and black's winning chances are also few and far between at that point. Doubling the rooks on the g file, threatening mate in 1, and I'd be happy to exchange bishops here as well. I still have this knight that can reroute to that e5 outpost. You'll notice that all my decisions here have to be made immediately. Only plus 2 seconds increment in this blitz game. I make the decision to take, knowing that I've got the e5 square for my knight, and I've got great pressure on the g file. So here I believe I have a sizable advantage. Rook g5 also puts pressure here. And, I can still slowly push the move b4, maybe b5 later. And the rooks can swing this way as well. So I was feeling pretty good here, despite my low time. And as blitz usually happens, my opponent will eventually catch up to me. Rook g5 doesn't actually threaten the pawn, but getting him to play g6 there is really good for me. Even though I have to take a step back with the rook, h5 is so strong now, and I think he realizes that he's in serious trouble. Despite his best efforts defensively, this position has now become really easy to play. Somebody's excited about their result there in the background. Now, despite g6 being takeable, I think I made the right decision. Maybe rook h3 was better. Now the move b3 here in a blitz game is a move just to buy some time. It means that I know he's pretty much paralyzed, and he's shuffling his queen, which shows that I'm right. And then I use those moves b3 and a3 to give myself time to think about my next plan, and here's that plan in action. Unfortunately, I did miss a move there, which would have been really nice to find, and I'll show you guys after the game what that was, but nevertheless, I didn't really make any mistakes this game, and you'll see here the handshake as that is completely winning. But I will just go back and highlight a cool tactic that I noticed it as soon as I moved, but unfortunately I didn't play it in the game. Queen takes h6, because if king takes, rook h2 would be checkmate.